and he did say he felt fingers entering his mouth. That's all I can give you for information in terms of the science behind this investigation.
Very interesting indeed, and there we are again with the inexperience. Very interesting. There are this story is full of amazing revelations about our place in the cosmos, but it goes even deeper here, okay? There are, for all you folks in Radioland who are unfamiliar with the story, an integral part of the story is the revelation of information from the entities to Betty of where they're from and a possible trade route in the Majori Fish Star Map. Before we talk about that, Kathy, can you explain to us, me and our audience here, what type of information was relayed to the Hills in this experience from the entities?
Well, not much information was actually relayed to Barney, only that he wouldn't be hurt. But after that, he continued to feel threatened, that if he were to reveal information about them, that he would somehow be harmed. In terms of Betty, she woke up. She realized that they were not going to harm her, and she actually interacted with the leader. She, at one point, had expressed her distress about having a needle inserted into her navel that caused her a great deal of pain. In fact, it was so traumatic for her under hypnosis that Dr. Simon had to end that session early.
Wow.
In order to relieve the trauma that she was experiencing.
It's terrifying.
She then received an apology of sorts from the leader, who said that he hadn't realized that they would be hurting her so badly and that they hadn't meant to do that. And then she was alone in the room. The examiner left the room to work on Barney, and she said to the leader in the understatement of the century, "Well, I know you are not from around here." And where are you from?
Yeah.
At that point, he did something to the wall. She wasn't sure exactly what it was, but she then was able to see what appeared to be a 2-foot by 3-foot, three-dimensional star map. She said it was almost as if she were looking out into space.
Wow.
Only there were lines connecting these stars, and some of them were close to her. 2 of them appeared to be as large as nickels, and there were 6 solid lines connecting those. And then there were others that had dotted or dashed lines connecting them. And the leader said to her, "Do you know where you are on this map?" And she said, "No, I don't know very much about the universe," is what she said.
Yeah.
And he said, "If you don't know where you are, how can I tell you where I am?" Which was pretty deceptive to me. I can't imagine why that exchange would have occurred unless he really didn't want to tell her where he was from.
Right.
But she was able to get the information that the solid lines were routes where they traveled very frequently, and that the dotted lines were more expeditions. And the 2 large stars in the foreground had many solid lines to them, and what we now know was our sun, according to Marjorie Fish's work, if that was a correct identification, what we know is our sun did have 2 lines, solid lines, going back and forth.
Interesting.
So we know that they had made some trips, more than one trip here.
That is just incredible. Now, it gets even more interesting later on when the scientists get involved here and try to map this star chart that she drew out later on with our current understanding of the cosmos. What happens there when the scientists look into our own stars and try and relate it to the map?
Yes, well, Marjorie Fish was actually an amateur astronomer. She was also a member of Mensa, meaning that she was a genius. She was single. She was a teacher. She'd majored in biology and sociology. And she had read the first book that was ever written about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, and that was very, very limited in its scope compared to Captured. It was published in 1966, and it just had the hypnosis information in it, some of it, not all of it. Marjorie had read the book, and she reasoned that if Betty's star map showed a place in our solar system, that she might be able to find that group of stars. And she was very skeptical about it, but she started her very, very long and detailed process. Those, the star catalogs that she used, the astronomical catalogs, were not available to the public. She had to go to Ohio State University, and she had to borrow those from the university and use them at the university. She had to hand copy all of the information because there was no copy machine that she could use. Over the next several years, she built 26 different three-dimensional models, seeking a pattern to match Betty's two-dimensional drawing. And she ended up going out 50 light years, trying to find the same star pattern, and she simply could not find it. She couldn't find it until 1972, when she finally had a catalog that where the last three stars on this map were found. And then she had a perfect match. When you look at this two-dimensional drawing, what Marjorie found as opposed to what Betty drew, you're going to see a difference. That is because Betty's two-dimensional drawing was drawn from Betty's perspective of looking up at the charts. And when the scientists received this information, they realized that from Betty's perspective, Marjorie had a perfect match.
Wow.
And she went out 54 light years, and she at first had 256 stars in their proper three-dimensional locations. But finally, when the last three stars were found in 1972, she had the perfect match. And all of the stars in that map that Marjorie found were sun-like, although only 5% of the 1,000 stars in our neighborhood out 54 light years are sun-like. So she had quite a discovery here. And the conservative estimates say that the chance of this happening simply by coincidence was 1 in 10,000. Some have said that it's 1 in a million. And all of the sun-like stars in that volume of space were in Betty's map. So that was quite remarkable. The map makes sense, nearest star to nearest star, and all of the pattern stars are in a plane, like pepperoni on a pizza, rather than scattered throughout our galaxy like raisins in a loaf of raisin bread where they would have been difficult to travel to. These were all fairly close in proximity in terms of light years from each other. They might have been places where one advanced civilization might travel to.
Incredible and fascinating.
Go ahead.
I said it's incredible and fascinating to hear this.
It really is fascinating to take a look at Marjorie's work. We have found recently that a couple of the stars in Marjorie's work that are not connected by lines now have different values, and that they're farther away than we thought. But those are not maps that were connected by lines, stars that were connected by lines. Those were not stars that these ETs indicated that they had traveled to. So that is really kind of a moot point at this point. The pair of base stars, Zeta 1 and Zeta 2 Reticulum, were only 39.2 light years from the Sun. But amazingly, they were only 1/8 of a light year apart. They're both Sun-like stars. So if they had developed intelligent life, they might be more motivated to travel back and forth between these star systems.
Exactly.
Just, I think, as we would be if we had a place that was close to go to and we thought that life existed there.
Exactly. You know, what's interesting is, what if life had developed on each of those stars and those beings on each planet had interacted, joined forces, and explored the cosmos, and that maybe in essence was who the entities were aboard the craft that the Hills were taken aboard. Two different types of entities.
And that's a very good point. And, you know, perhaps that is what happened. We do know that those base stars are at least 1 billion years older than the Sun.
Incredible. This story is just amazing, and it brings about an enormous amount of revelations. It's extremely detailed, and it holds a lot of key information about the experience, and especially the experience in the beginning. I realized, I can't remember what year it was. I think it was the late 70s that they produced a film about the experience?
Yes, it was 1975. It was October of 1975. The film was called The UFO Incident,
right,
starring James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons.
I saw the movie. It was fun.
They used theatrical license in the film. It gives the impression that Barney and Betty had no conscious recollection,
right,
of the close encounter with the craft. That is false. Betty and Barney had conscious recollection of everything except for the abduction itself.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it was a pretty good film. A lot of people have enjoyed that film.
Is it still available?
I know that it is posted on YouTube. I have viewed it there.
Really? It's so hard to find. I'll have to check that out on YouTube. I think I've checked everywhere but YouTube for that movie. Because it's been so long since I saw it. I rented it from a really obscure little convenience store when I was about 12. And I haven't seen it since. So I'd like to get a hold of that again. A phenomenal story. An amazing book. The story, it just goes so... It penetrates so deep into the psyche, and really helps us to question who we are and what our place is in the universe here, and whether or not we are living under two extremely different realities, one that they shell out to us through the mass media and one that is actually taking place. Thanks for writing that book. That's an amazing story.
Well, thank you. It was an amazing search for me to use my skills as a social scientist to actually investigate the close encounter and abduction of family members. So I was able to get far more information than any investigator or researcher could ever have gotten.
That's the other intriguing point I wanted to make. That's incredible. Where can people get a hold of Captured?
Well, it is available in your bookstores in Canada. I know that it's there. It is also available at Amazon. But if you would like to have an autographed copy of the book, you can go to my website. It's autographed by both Stanton Friedman and myself. It's www.Kathleen, Kathleen, Marden, Marden.com. And you can also visit my site and read an article about my comparative analysis of the tapes. I have an article about hypnosis, and also have listed my upcoming appearances.
Just phenomenal. Now, I understand through my interview with Stan and speaking with you and my forays into the unexplained and the literature therein, that in June, like I mentioned earlier in the program, science was wrong.